Coach Helen for You Fit Studio, doing a live and podcast about relationships. Quality of relationship really is a good one to start with. So let's go with that, because I do like this. And this is a statement. It's probably about romantic relationships, to be fair, because I did one before and it was quite broad. I kind of covered a lot of different relationships, family, etc. This one I'm just going to say is straight ass relationships, straight ass intimate relationships, and that's all I'm going to go with, right? I'm just going to keep it neat, right? Keep it precise. Although this statement is a little bit broader. Listen to this one. I liked this. This is one that I did get from Tony Robbins, right? I'm going to give credit where it's due, right? The quality of your relationships is the quality of your life. Let's go with that one again. I like to leave a pause so you can process that one. The quality of relationship is the quality of your life. Okay, which I think is a fascinating statement. And how I'm going to approach this today is start with that, right? Start with that statement, because I have, right? And I'm going to talk about the roles we play in relationships, and also what happens over a relationship develops in time. This is from a combination of different elements, this way of looking at relationships. And I'm actually going to go through each stage and then kind of look at in terms of where to change some element of it. And actually, I won't obviously go into too much detail. I have actually used this since myself in my relationship, since coming across this, and it's fascinating actually how effective it is. I mean, I know that I talk about this stuff. I also know it's always the best thing to do it yourself, innit? I say everything in life, I don't do anything that I don't ask you to do. So I have actually used this principle, and it is, I was conscious it was happening, this process we're going to go through, and so I thought, right, well, I've only just been learning about this, so it stands to reason, if I'm going to see if it works, now is the best time than any. So I'm going to give it a bang. And actually, as I said, it was. So I'm going to go through that as well. Again, not in detail in my case, I'm just going to go through what to notice and when. So let's again go back to that statement. The quality of your relationships is the quality of your life. Now, if you think of the quality of your relationships, what is quality? And how does that look to you? Now, quality of relationships, right? Is it the intimacy level? Is it the level of communication? Ultimately, if you take that statement of fact, it is true. Like, the quality of your life is based on all the relationships we have with everyone around us, right? And how good that relationship is dictates how simple our lives are a lot of the time, right? Imagine if a poor quality relationship with every single person in your life. Life would be very challenging, and quite difficult to manage, right? So what is that though? How does how does you create quality in a relationship? First, I think it's important to understand, and I do agree with this, and I've said this, a lot of things in life require ownership, right? So have you ever heard, you have that mate, have you ever had that mate quite close, maybe been in some relationships, and you always have to remind yourself, and probably that person as well, there's two sides to every story, right? How many times have you heard that in a conversation, or had it said to you, or know that when you've been talking to somebody, that you're listening to your friend or that person close to you, and you kind of fully in it, like, oh my god, I can't believe they did that. That is, wow, that's terrible. That's awful. I completely understand where you're coming from. There is always, right? There is always, true fact, there is always two sides to a story. And there's always two sides to a relationship, because there is a relationship. That's the whole point. There's two parties in a relationship. And what happens so often, as people, if you're that friend talking about the relationship, it's less common that we take ownership of our own actions. So it's often a question, as I heard it put, is to ask yourself, what part do you play in the ownership of that relationship? So if you know there's something that irritates your other half and you're still going, beep, and then waiting for them to react to go, that's, see? What role are you playing in that? What role do each of us play in our relationship that takes responsibility of why there are quality issues or not? Because there always is, like, regardless of what someone's action is, there's always a part to play. As much as when it gets down to it, some people get defensive when questioned about it or challenged on it. The reality is that often the quality of the relationship also depends on how much responsibility you take in your part in it. Right? So taking responsibility for it and owning it, right, is important. Why? If you think about, if you've got the same friend, I'm thinking some friends where it seems like you're giving them the same advice every time they're in a relationship. Can you think of anybody like that you've come across? Or if you've been that person yourself, you go, I don't understand why I keep making the same mistakes. Or you listen to that friend going, it's happened again. Why is it always me? Why is it always me that gets that one person who does this X, Y, Z? Why is it important to take responsibility for your own part? Because if you don't take responsibility for what action you play, you'll go into your next relationship and play out the same role. If you think again of that person that you've spoken to, like, and there's two sides to every story, I'm hearing this story again. Why is it that they get the same story? Because they play the same role in the story, or more often than not, actually. And they play it again in the next relationship because they've not taken ownership of it. And taking ownership of it is actually starting to realise that there's some adaptations or changes they need to make, right? It's fascinating from a human behaviour point of view. So what then helps another part of the quality of relationship or increases quality of relationship? It's always communication. Always communication. Hands down, communication. Like there's developing ways that these things happen, right? And again, you can probably think of any relationship you've been in previously where this has happened, or you're aware that this happens, or you know you've had a part to play in it, right? And it starts with, again, this is from Tony Robbins, again, credit where it's due, because the man's a genius. Although he also takes it from other elements as well, to be fair to him. So he talks about stage one being resistance, right? So resistance is pretty much, you know, the really adorable things when you meet somebody they do, and you're like, oh, that's so cute, I really like that, oh, squish. At some point, they start to get a little bit irritating. The resistance areas is that you start to think, oh, that's really annoying. Someone else used to do that in a previous relationship, and I didn't like that then. But you're still smiling, like, yeah. But somewhere it's like there's a tiny person with a little nail going, Yes, resistance is futile. Say it with a voice. Resistance is futile. You know, it's just like, what are they talking about? It's like, you're not fans. It is futile a little bit though, because I think what happens is, if you think about when it's happened to you as well, you often let these things go because you're like, it's only something small. Like, really, they are still kind of cute. Like, they used to be quite cute with that. I don't really mind that they do that. It's okay. Even though it really irritates me, it's always irritated me in a relationship. It's okay. I can live with it. Yeah, still smiling, right? In the background though, there's a little bit more resistance building up, right? There's a little bit more labelling of somebody being like a previous relationship, even if they're not, even if the motivation behind it is different, right? And then, if you don't nip it in the bud, right? If you don't have the conversation, the resistance builds into resentment. Okay, so it's actually kind of a bit more annoying now. It's more like, I wish they wouldn't do that. The smile's gone around it. It's like, I wish they really wouldn't do that. That's so irritating right now. So annoyed. And it's gone from resentment into, this is the next one, rejection, where it does really pee people off. It does really pee them off. Like, it's not even vaguely entertaining. It's just really annoying to the degree that there's eye rolling, or there's like, it happens. And then it goes into, this is what I see the most. usually because it's got to that point, and it goes into repression, right? So repression is where it's literally like, I can't even deal with dealing with it. And he uses, and I'm always an observer of this. You ever see that couple that go out to dinner and they're on the phone? They're on their own phone. They're like this, all the way through, opposite each other. Does everyone? I think it's just me that notices that, because I always notice it and go, "Oh, I really don't want to get there. How did they get there?" And this is how they get there. This is actually how it happens. This is the step up pathway, because the cute little things of, oh, look at this puppy, oh, let's go, oh my God, or making noises, or the cute way of not putting the bin out, and forgetting to put the bin out every Tuesday night. Oh, you're so forgetful. Yeah, you are, yeah. Gets into like, you didn't put the bin out again. And now I'm not even going to address it because I can't. I'm laughing, although that is, if you think about that couple, think about every single thing that somebody does that builds up that resistance, resentment, rejection, repression. It's so annoying that somebody doesn't even bother trying to discuss it anymore, because it's just like, I'm compromising that this is you. So it goes down the 4 hours to the point where it's just like completely pushed away from each other. There's just literally, if it's got to like between rejection and repression, it's like two magnets in the opposite kind of, you know, the bit when they push apart. It's like, I don't want to be around you. You're annoying. Everything is annoying. Even when you have like those moments, when it gets to that point in a relationship, the quality of relationship is a stage where it's just like, nah, done. I'm going to sit opposite you on my phone the whole time until dinner's here. And then we'll talk about the food. Because, how's yours? That's nice. Yeah. Do you want to try some? Yeah. Jack. I've seen it that many times. And that's the pathway. The thing is that it's actually possible to cut that off. It is. It's just often a very uncomfortable conversation, isn't it? Like, do you know that that's really irritating what you do? And it reminds me of a previous relationship. And I don't want to go down the same path where I start to get annoyed at you, because it is taking ownership, right? Going back to that initial point, taking ownership of my role in that relationship. What I eventually did was X, because they peed me off so much and you're doing it. It's less of a comfortable conversation. No, I'm not, again, I did say, I've used it because I can't ask a client to do something or use something that I haven't used myself. Have I used it? Yes. Did something irritate me? Yes, it didn't irritate me. It reminded me of a previous relationship, and I started to repel away, like, oh, not comfortable. I don't want this to go down this route. This will end up in a particular way. And actually, all it needed was the conversation. And I was like, I thought of this, and I thought, right, at this point, I'm in resistance. I'm just like, I've noticed rather than just go over it and say it's okay, I'm actually going to say something and say, do you know what? This is what's happening in my head, and I need to have a conversation. And I'm going to own that I know in the end, if I don't deal with it, this is how I will behave. And then that's my responsibility in relationship, that I've taken responsibility of it. And guess what? Sorted. Now it stopped. Yay! Cut it off. Okay? Because it does actually eventually go down the same pathway. It's just interesting that as human beings, we think it's actually nicer to the other person to not address it, just to kind of suck it up and go, no, it's okay. It's just them. It's just who they are. I think my sister's got the best one. I hope she should probably listen to this and go. Her other half like eats popcorn very loudly. That got nailed out quite quickly, thank God. But it's like that. If that had been left go, she'd be like, I'm not going to cinema with him ever again because he eats his popcorn so loudly. That was so endearing to start with. Oh, it's so funny. Now it's like, that's an example of it though. But this is an example of everything that if it's not cut out, it just ends. That's the couple. Sean's like, yeah, I noticed them. Yeah, they're sat there like this. No, don't talk to you. There is another half to this. Also, by the way, sure, I'll do separately in a separate live, because I think this needed to be on its own, right? So I could have doubled up the live on the podcast on this and make this a much longer one. Actually, though, in itself, I think it just needs some time to think about, because men and women may approach this differently, of which I'll do that in a separate one. I think a separate episode. I think is what it needs. However, what would be good is to think about this. Actually, just think about this in some situations you have now, where you just think, I've let it go so long that I'm almost immune to it. Actually, no, I know every time that somebody does it, I can hear that nail on the chalkboard. It's still there. It's still creating that resentment. It's creating that repression. Right, that I'm just past the point I can say anything because I let it go so long. Well, the thing is, it's not. It's just it needed to be cut off for that first stage or second stage, where it's still resistance and resentment rather than rejection, rather than repression. We're just rejecting the idea of even being around them, right? So it's possible to do. Remember, that was the first statement. I'm going to go back and I've just recapped, but to go for that first statement, right? The quality of your relationships is the quality of your life. How much time you put into creating the quality of your relationships dictates the quality of your life, as it does. Like you either put the time and effort into those relationships and into your life, or you let you be as it is, right? Yeah. So it means, I don't know, it's a bit of a shorter one today, but that's because I wanted that. I wanted you to actually spend some time thinking about that and thinking about ones you potentially may have to talk about, or even if something crops up now, think, well, actually, might just nip it in the bud and get it done. All right, worth it for the quality of your life. All right, have a lovely evening. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll catch you now tomorrow.